بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم. نويت تعلم وتعليم وذكر وتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم، ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى، مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم نسألك العلم لدني والمشرب الصافي الهني يهب يا غني. اللهم نسألك العلم لدني والمشرب الصافي الهني يهب يا غني. اللهم نسألك العلم لدني والمشرب الصافي الهني يهب يا غني. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم، والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين آمين آمين. الحمد لله. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. في كل بدأ خلق رضا ونفس زنة عرش مداد كلماتي. Alhamdulillah, we're going on to the 22nd method in teaching with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and here we enter a very delightful chapter whereby it speaks about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam teaching through humor. Right, so this is especially so to lighten things up, and also humor that is appropriate. Right, and Rasulullah will lay down for us the guidelines as to humor that is appropriate and humor that is not appropriate. Right, so and especially in teaching the younger crowd, right, a bit of humor here and there is appropriate, right, but not humor all the time, right? So because the religion itself is heavy, right? It is serious, right? So to teach them when it has to be serious, right? When we do not make jokes all the time, right? But here and there, just to lighten things up, right? Rasulullah did show, right, there is a balance lah. At the end of the day, there is a balance, right, in teaching through humor. Right, so here subtle humor provides amusement and diversion to a person, and here the keyword is subtle, right? It's subtle humor. It's a bit, right? Not too much, not too excessive, right? And in no way should it be insulting onto anyone, right? Or in no way should it be of any form of a lie, right? Or untruth. So it lightens the burden of fatigue. Difficulties and hardships are inevitable in life, but through humor, the burden of these is lessened. Right, so but it also takes a skill lah. Not everybody is good at it, and making things humorous. Because sometimes you might end up making it annoying, or you just end up hurting other people, or And so in a sense, like, it has to be a natural form of humor, right? And that Rasulullah he used to have also. Right, it's a very light humor. Right, a person can learn from a smiling person, frowning person, and that is lighten up the mood, right? Of course, when they do misbehave here and there, show a stern face, but most of the time, right, I mean, especially when it comes to teaching and disciplining, right, to keep either a light or maybe a neutral temperament, right, it is better, right, because then they will be able to absorb what you are saying, right? But if you keep showing a stern face or an angry face, right, they'll be more focused on the anger than on what you're actually saying. Right, they're more focused on that, and you see that a lot, right? They're more scared of of the anger that you're showing than actually what you are saying, and what they did, right? So subhanallah, and the wisdom from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A continuous seriousness is burdensome on the mind and heavy on the thoughts. Occasional humor refreshes and revitalizes a person. Right, that's why every now and then I had to have like games, to have just something light, even to go into discussion, right? Just to make it easy lah, right? And especially for subjects that will be heavy in its nature. right? So for example, jurisprudence, right? Fiqh, right? Fiqh is naturally a heavy subject. Right? It is actually a very heavy subject, right? So you need to interspace, right, the fiqh with stories, interspace the fiqh with discussion, questions, right, and whatsoever, to just make it light a bit, right? Because the subject itself is heavy, right? Same thing with grammar, and grammar is a heavy subject, right? So to have the sentences a bit more light, right, the language a bit more light is better, right? Story or in humor. So light humor is a very sweet teaching aid. A jovial remark helps in guiding and enlightening the a student, and one can thus gauge how intelligent this wise, dignified, affectionate, and merciful teacher was, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, so just a jovial. Sometimes he makes a jovial remark. Even like Abu Hurairah's name, they call him Abahir. Right, that is of his jokingness. So Rasulullah, when he called him Abahir, Abahir, right, oh father of the cat. Right, so it's from his jovialness, right, that he just gave them nicknames. Right, there was one Sayyidina Ali, he had a dispute with Sayyidina Fatima Zahra, right, and he left the house. He went to the masjid. So Rasulullah, he found out about the dispute between his daughter and Sayyidina Ali, right, as a married couple. Right, so he went to Sayyidina Ali, and Sayyidina Ali was in the masjid. He was asleep on the ground of the masjid. Right, so Rasulullah also in his jovialness, he's trying to lighten up the issue and what's going on, right, the matter lah. So in his jovialness, he went there and he says, "Oh, father of the dust, right, get up." Right, so in this, it's like the nickname. And they remember the words immediately, right? Immediate catching the words, right, that you are teaching them, right? So, and also like telling stories, right, to always have like a a flavor of humor in the stories when you tell them the stories, right? Or even with our own voice, our own voice tones. And also you watch me, you will see I do it a lot. Right, with children, when you want to tell stories, you need to always vary your voice tone and to use a funny voice tone also at times, right? Because then it will really capture their attention. Especially the story is going to be long. It's going to be a long story, right? So you need to very make it funny, right? Have a long tone, a low tone, a high tone. These are all of the ways of Rasulullah also, right? In basically in making it jovial. Right, make it easy on them to learn, and the time will pass by them quickly, right? So you don't have to like watch only 1 more hour, 2 more hours, like how we do in school, like we will look at the clock, you see when finish, right? So when you engage them easily, right, the time goes by them and they begin to enjoy the lessons and they will absorb better, right? And of course, Rasulullah was known more for his joyfulness, right, than he was for his seriousness. He was serious and stern when the time calls for it, and his joys when time calls for it. And that in itself is a lesson for us. That it's not all the time you're serious, it's not all the time you are joyful. And when it's time to be serious, you be serious. Because there are some teachers who they joke too much. Sometimes it's too much joking, and sometimes it's overboard also, right? In that their joking is uncalled for. Right? Sometimes it's uncalled for joking, and it's not even respectful. Right? In especially when it comes to different races and different cultures. Right, there's a disrespect right? Kind of, right, in the way they are joking. So we learn from Rasulullah, he's the best of he's the best of teachers, right? So we see how intelligent, wise, dignified, affectionate, and merciful teacher. So right here, he just listed out, a few of the traits of a teacher, right? Intelligent, wise, dignified, right? Dignity has to be there for the teacher, right? Because the student looks up to the teacher. So if a teacher is unable to show any form of dignity, right, or the teacher does things that reduces her dignity, right, then that would be detrimental to the student, right, because you don't know how to carry yourself well, right, as a teacher. So it's all part of the Rasulullah. Affectionate also is part of, you can be affectionate while being dignified. You can show dignity and you can be affectionate to your students, right? In that, especially for children. The climb. Okay. Right, so affectionate, right, especially for younger ones, right, to be affectionate to them, right, to have physical activities, right, with them, right, physical touch. This is what younger ones they thrive on. And mercy, right? Mercy in a teacher is the most important thing. Is the most important trait in a teacher, to have mercy. And this is what Rasulullah stood by, and that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, in Surah Ar-Rahman, when Allah says Ar-Rahman allama al-Quran. Ar-Rahman, the most merciful, he was the one who taught the Quran, which shows us immediately a direct link between mercy and teaching. A person cannot be teaching if they don't have any mercy. So when people, especially when your children, when your students, they make mistakes, for you and to see, why was the mistake made, just to take a step back, so not to jump to conclusions, or jump to labeling, or jump to punishment, but to see clearly what was done. Is it from ignorance? They don't know, then you have mercy on them. They don't know, is it from they're not being reminded enough? You need to remind them more. So you reflect onto your side as a parent or as a teacher. Is it me? I am not. Is it from me that they are making these mistakes? Or is it I have not taught them well enough about this? So in a sense, that allows you to have to show more mercy, because you begin to understand what they do, instead of getting angry with them. In our time, one of the biggest diseases of our time is that people are, in a sense, they are treating children like adults. In a sense, they expect better, from your child. How can you expect better from your child? Your child is a child, So even up to 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, they're still children. So if they do things, they lie, or they whatever they might do things at you, but at the same time, just to see it from their point of view, why they do what they do, and then when you're able to put things in perspective, you can teach better. With things in perspective, the lesson is delivered better, than to jump to conclusions, or then to punish, without first analyzing what happened. So after you analyze what happened, then you can actually teach the lesson better, to see, because you can troubleshoot what's the problem. Is the problem ignorance? Is the problem basically, Allahu Alam, stubbornness? Is the problem maybe fear? Some of them problem is fear. Is the problem that they are nervous? The problem that what is the problem? So once you can identify the problem, you can address the problem exactly as what it is, and solve the situation. So he says here, Rasulullah used to joke and jest with the Sahaba on the companions on certain occasions. However, he spoke nothing but the truth. So Rasulullah and Abu Hurairah said, the Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, you joke with us. And he replied, I speak nothing but the truth. So his joking is all truth. He's telling the truth. His joking is all telling the truth. So he says here that he taught many things through joking and humor. Allama bin Qutayba rahimahullah ta'ala said, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to joke because the people were commanded to emulate him and to follow him in his footsteps. Had he abandoned a cheerful countenance and a pleasant expression and stuck to seriousness and sternness, the people would also have adopted this approach despite it being against their nature and temperament. He joked with them so that they could do the same, but he spoke nothing but the truth. So he has made it his sunnah to joke occasionally. not all the time, right? Joking occasionally, but to be pleasant all the time. So his pleasantry, Rasulullah SAW, to be pleasant, right? To be joyous, right? To be light on people, to be gentle and good to people, and to be merciful towards people, right? To laugh. There was we will go to the hadith inshallah later on, right? About the Sahabi who came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, I am destroyed, and he is in a really terrible situation, a terrible state. And some asked him, why do you say that? And he says that I went to I had intercourse with my wife in the day of Ramadan, so I'm destroyed. And then Rasulullah said to him, just very calmly said to him, the hukum, I said that there is no scolding here, because he can see the Sahabi he's not in a good state. Right? Like, he's regretful, he thinks he's destroyed, he thinks he's that's it, he's going to go to the hellfire, he's in a very broken situation, the Sahabi. So there was something he could analyze, and therefore there was no scolding, and there was no scolding involved, right? He didn't scold at all, the Sahabi. And he said to the Sahaba, right, free a slave. And the Sahabi said, I have no slaves to free, I'm a poor man. Then Rasulullah said to him, fast 2 months in a row. Right, here we have the ruling of those who have intercourse during Ramadan. They fast 2 months in a row. And the Sahabi said, Ya Rasulullah, I couldn't even do Ramadan. I can't even do 2 months in a row. If I can't do Ramadan, I can't do 2 months in a row. Right, and then Rasulullah said to the Sahabi, then feed 60 people. Right, feed 60 people. And then he said to Rasulullah, I don't have anything to feed them with, I'm so poor. And then Rasulullah said to him, and he had a sack of food at that time, dates or something. And he passed to the Sahabi and said, take this and feed the poorest in your community. And then the Sahabi said, but we are the poorest in our community. My family, we are the poorest. There are some, he laughed. This is the point. He laughed. Because he's in the situation, he's just... one thing after another, this companion, he's panicking. The companion is panicking. And so he laughed. And the Sahaba said he laughed until his molars could be seen. That means he opened his mouth and he laughed. And the laugh of Rasulullah is a smile, at most an open mouth smile. Right? He does not bellow in his laughing. He doesn't go out and go like ha ha ha. Like, he chuckles. It's a very sweet laughter from Rasulullah. He chuckles, or he opens his mouth and you see this wide smile. And the Sahaba will call that laughing. Right? But it's actually he's smiling. He's smiling with an open mouth. Right? And then he said to the man, then take it and feed your family. Right? But of course, this ruling is only for the Sahabi. It's not for everybody else. Right? This ruling is specific for the Sahabi by Rasulullah about what he said. But after him, no one else. If anyone were to have intercourse in the day of Ramadan, then the ruling stays. Right? That they are to either fast or give charity. Even if it takes a long time to finish giving the charity, they have to give the charity. Right? Of freeing a slave. But right now we have no more slaves. Alright. So here he says, this is how he has his laughing. And I mentioned before when I was reading the other book, I think this book, the other book, that I have a book that my husband bought, right? 100 or 1,000 instances or 100 instances whereby the Prophet ﷺ smiled or laughed. Right? It's a collection of hadith, whereby every hadith there is a statement, and he laughed, right? Or and he smiled. Right, so subhanallah, right? There was one hadith also. I mean, we'll go to the hadith inshallah. But there was one hadith also whereby he began laughing, and then Sahaba was like, yeah, why are you laughing, ya Rasulullah? And then he says, 2 men come together, right, and one kills the other, but they're both in paradise. And then he laughed. He laughed and he smiled. And then it's interesting that the way Rasulullah his humor. He laughed, and then he said, how is it so, ya Rasulullah? Then he says, this one is a Muslim and the other one is a kafir, right? And the kafir kills the Muslim in battle. He dies as a shaheed, he goes to paradise. Thereafter, the kafir becomes a Muslim, and he dies as a shaheed and he goes to paradise. So 2 of them, they come and fight, and they both go to paradise. And it shows that Rasulullah, he finds joy in knowing when people make it to paradise. He finds joy. Right? And same thing with the hadith of the last man to enter paradise, right? Whereby the man keeps asking Allah to put him nearer and nearer and nearer. And in the hadith it says, and then he laughed. Rasulullah, he laughed, because he laughed, he's smiling from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is being shown. Right? Sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Right, so subhanallah, right, so Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala said, prohibited joking is that wherein excesses are committed. right? Excesses are committed, right? Meaning what? There is vulgarity, right? There is slander, lying, making fun, hurting other people's feelings, right? These are all prohibited. Joking, right? Of course, in our time, whereby a lot of jokes are surrounding gender, or jokes surrounding a person's race or nationality, right? In our religion, this kind of jokes we do not subscribe to, right? Because the kind of jokes, they actually demean an entire group of people, right, or entire community. Like for me personally, especially when it comes to gender jokes, right, where they make jokes about women, make jokes about men, that kind of thing, right? My teacher, she will always say, because someone once shared gender jokes about men, or men being this and men being that, whatsoever, and then she said that, don't share this kind of jokes, because our Prophet was a man, and so were the Sahaba, they were men, right? And they were great men from the past, right? So don't do this kind of jokes. There's no need for this kind of jokes, and it has no benefit to you, whatsoever, right? So there's a line when it comes to there's a limit when it comes to joking, right? So he says here, jokes in this nature lead to laughter and hard-heartedness. So he said, and which is done all the time, and this kind of prohibited joking in which excesses are committed, right, whereby there is vulgarity, right, or whereby there is indecency. Right, this is our time kind of in the indecencies of this kind of joking. So it does put the hukum of where it stand with us to watch stand-up comedy. Right, what is the hukum in our religion to watch stand-up comedy? Because stand-up comedy, a lot of it has to do with mocking. Right, a lot of it, a huge part of it is mocking. And mocking is a race or a people or a understanding or whatsoever. It's a lot of mocking. Some of them, they speak the truth, right? But they speak the truth in a joking manner, and that could be okay, right? Because some of them they speak political or social truths or ills, and they put it in a joking manner to just highlight it. So they're actually doing a form of goodness in trying to highlight these ills in society for people to do something about it, right? But then most of it is just a lot of mocking. Right, of other nationalities or other races, and that is not permissible in our religion, right? So here it keeps a person away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and from giving due attention to the important matters of religion, right? Due attention to the important matters of the religion, right? It often causes harm and leads to resentment, especially if there is mocking. Right, harm and leads to resentment. There is unfortunately, sometimes we have heard some asatiza, when they joke, it's really unbecoming. Right, some of their jokes really is distasteful, right? And then it's just that they want to joke. Right, but if we only listen to our Prophet ﷺ, we know certain forms of joking is really distasteful. It's really unbecoming. You should not. So I hear it, and I'm like, why do they say it that way? Why does he or she, the teacher involved, you're teaching in religion, and then your joking is distasteful? It's just not. It's not funny. It's not funny. It's distasteful. It's mocking in some sense. It's even sometimes it's undignified. Some of the joking, right? And I'm sure you've heard it also. You hear you kind of like you feel uncomfortable, right? And the crowd, some of them laugh, and then but you feel. I'm very uncomfortable. Right, it's kind of joking, right? So we see how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he did it, right? And then it's funny, and you see his jokes are funny. When I read the book that my husband bought, actually we just go through one day, the book about the 1,000 laughing and smiling or something. When you read it, it's so it really gives you an idea of when you actually joke. It teaches you the adab of joking and laughing and smiling, right? So when I read it, I you feel so warm inside. It's kind of like warm, fuzzy feeling, right? Inside, when you read the hadith and you see that, and then the Prophet laughed, and then he smiled, right? You always feel this warmth inside, right? That he found it funny, right? And then he began to smile and he began to laugh, right? The book is an amazing book, subhanallah. Right, but inshallah one day you'll go through it, one by one, at the hadith, right, that we can see how he smiled and laughed, right, these kind of things, right? So alhamdulillah, right? So but laughing just like that, without benefit, it means empty laughter. It causes hard-heartedness, and this is from our Prophet ﷺ. And this is for us to be wary about when watching comedy. And a lot of comedy, actually, honestly, really need to be honest with ourselves. A lot of comedy out there, right? You watch things like Friends, right? You watch things like, I don't know, what other comedies are there? Whatever lah, right? All this comedy is Malay, whatever, all this lawak, and they call it lawak, right? Right? It's funny stuff. Like a lot of it, either it is ridiculous, like it's just plain ridiculous. Sometimes, I mean, it insults the intellect. And some of it is comedy, some of it funny sometimes, and then some of it is just, you know what? It's not even. It's demeaning. It's demeaning. It's insulting. And nowadays, when you go to the Western side of comedy, a lot of it is sexual. A lot of it is sexual. It's lewd. It's indecent. Right? So in a sense, comedy today, like subhanallah, right? There is no. Basically, you wouldn't even say not only is there no benefit, you're already bounding on what is not permissible. I won't say boundary, I say you're in. You're in what is not permissible. It's not even boundary. It's in what is not permissible by making sexual jokes, you know, indecent jokes, right? By mocking, by, you know, and whatever lah, this kind of comedy, right? But I don't know about when it comes to like Mr. Bean kind of comedy. Now it's just silly lah, just silliness. Like, people laugh at silliness. Allahu alam. Like I just. Imitating accents, it could border on insulting a race.
But if it's your own race.
It's your own race.
But you don't speak like that.
Yeah.
Speak like that.
You can go to the intention of doing it. What's the intention? Right? So you can look into it. Look into the intention. Taubat from. Yeah, it could border on making fun. It could border on making fun.
Lighten the mood. It's my own race.
Yeah. Yeah, but not making out the race, making out the people in the race that speak that way.
But to lighten the mood,
No. Right, so it keeps the person away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right, too much laughing. Right, too much laughing creates hard-heartedness. Keeps a person away from Allah's remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and from giving due attention to important matters of the religion. I can't give an example right now, but I know so many times, I've heard so many times whereby a preacher is preaching and they make an inappropriate joke that removes the seriousness of what he's preaching or she's preaching, and then everybody becomes focused on the joke, and then in a sense it's lost, right? It's just lost. Right? So I mean, so many times I hear it, I'm like, why must that person say that? You know, like while everyone was focusing. Especially one thing I really find highly distasteful is when people are teaching Quran and tafsir, right? And then in the tafsir, right, they begin to, you know, do jokes, right? Which is distasteful lah. It's Quran, you know, it's Quran. Come on, right? Let Quran be heavy. Quran is supposed to be heavy. Right? It's supposed to be heavy. I would say fiqh, right? Fiqh you can make it light, because fiqh is law. Right? Law already is heavy. Right? So you do situations, right? That is funny, you know, but it's real. It's real. Right? Some people they do it, right? So like how Mariam, she will say, like that day we're doing our fiqh, right? And then she will say, you know, the fiqh often you come as the last person in the saf, and everybody's in saf, right? So you're supposed to tap a person and then pull the person back, right? And then join the saf. So she will say, like, you know, there was once somebody came, tap the person, pull him back, and he entered the that kind of joking, you know, like in a sense, like he entered there, and she was like, don't do that, right? Don't pull someone back and then you enter their place. And the person is behind you, like, what? What are you doing? Right, but it's just fiqh lah, fiqh. She has a lot of fiqh riddles and like, but it's riddles, so it's true. Riddles are true. Riddles is basically wordplay, right? Or like, you know, it's a clever way. You know, that when it comes out, the answer, oh yeah, that's true, that's correct. Right? She does that all the time. Right, so this is all from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to just lighten the subject matter if it is okay to lighten it. Right, some subject matter is not okay to lighten it. Right, not at all. Right. So it keeps so then it says here, it keeps the person away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and from giving due attention. Right, so it causes harm and leads to resentment it also causes one to lose awe and respect of the teacher. And that has happened, right? When a teacher begins to joke in a way that is not appropriate, they lose their dignity straight away, and you lose the awe and respect of that person, because especially if a teacher joked in a way whereby they use racism, or they use nationalities, or they use sexuality. If any real teacher was to use any of these things, the moment they do it, it's just your entire respect for the person just diminished. Right, the moment they begin doing it, right? It's true. Right, it's true. We have to learn from Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Joking and humor that is free of such description is lawful, and in fact, at some point, sunnah, right, for us to do. This is what Rasulullah SAW used to occasionally do for a specific reason, or to make a person feel good or comfortable. Right? Joking and humor in this nature is certainly not prohibited. In fact, it is a commendable sunnah of Rasulullah SAW if done as described above. Adopt this because there is a great need for it. The inspiration to do good is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he's saying that we need to also, of course, there are two extremes: those who overly joke and they transgress when they joke, and those who are too stern and they don't actually joke, right? So like an example, like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, right? He does joke here and there. He's a very serious person, right? But if you hear his jokes, they're very well placed. Okay, maybe I'm biased now, but I feel like his jokes are very well placed, right? Because he was talking about about how sin becomes customized in society, that people no longer can sense that they are in sin anymore, right? Because it's a customization of lewdness, of lack of modesty and whatsoever, right? And then he was speaking about it, like how it became so widespread that people no longer know that they are in sin. And then he mentioned a story, right? It's a story. He said a story whereby he said there's a story about this fish, right? Then he begins to laugh. Even being the story, he begins to laugh. It's about this fish, right? There's this old fish there, and these two younger fish are swimming by. This is Shamda kind of stories. Right? Two younger fish are swimming by, and then the old fish. You know the story, you're laughing already.
Because you have a face.
It's a weird story. So I'm laughing because he found it amusing. This old fish says to these two smaller fish, how's the water today, boys? Right? Like, hey boys, how's the water today? And the two fish stare at him and they swim off. Right? And then one fish says to the other fish, "What's water?" It's just, he says one fish says to the other fish, "What's water?" "I don't know." And it's just the last trait that they were born in it, so they don't know they're in water. And the same thing, with the so he was trying the last trait, sin, sin. Whereby you're in it, you don't even know you're in it. You don't even know you're in it. So he found it funny, the story, but then it's a very good illustration, like of being so engulfed in sin, or so normalized sin that you don't even see it anymore. Right? So mashallah. But I don't know why he found the story funny about the fish. He actually found the story funny. this kind of things, like it just lightens up, right? But it also there's a point there, and that you actually learn from. Okay, the hadith. I'm so tempted to go now and take my book and read sections of it. I'm so tempted. You need to hear all his smilings and laughter, mashallah. So here he says, Rawah Bukhari wa Muslim wa Abu Dawud wa Tirmidhi wa Ibn Majah wa lafzu li Abi Dawud an Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu ta'ala anhu قال كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يدخل علينا ولي أخ صغير يكنى أبا عمير وكان له نغر يلعب به فمات فدخل عليه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ذات يوم فرآه حزينا فقال ما شأنه قالوا مات نغره فقال يا أبا عمير ما فعل النغير. This is one of the This is one of my most favorite hadiths actually, mashallah. It's a long hadith. The story is actually a very, very long story about this Abu Umair, right? And I'll tell you the story in a while, inshallah. So Bukhari and Muslim, Abu Dawud and Tirmidhi and Ibn Majah narrate on the authority of Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu, who said, Rasulullah used to visit us meaning the families in Anas, like his family, yeah. And I had a small brother who was called Abu Umair. His small brother, a small boy, he barely reached the age of 4, it was said. Small boy. And he had a bird, right, that he used to play with. So one day this bird died. And this is kind of hadith that you take a lot of lessons from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This bird died. So one day this bird died and Rasulullah came and to visit them, and he noticed that the brother was sad. Right? And he asked the family, what happened? And why is he sad? Right? And this is also the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You see his sunnah. That when you see children sad, you ask them. You ask them what happened. Right? What's going on? In a sense, and this is how you build their esteem and their self worth, by asking them, why are you sad? What's going on? What happened? Right? And then so he was told that his bird died. Right? The family said that the bird or the boy died. You know the story about the boy and the bird? In the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you heard that story before? I tell you the story now. You come see here. The story about the bird and the boy. It's a long story actually. It's a long story. So they say his bird died. So Rasulullah came to this Abu Umair and he sat with him and he says, oh Abu Umair, what happened to Nughair? And Nughair is a diminutive form of the word Nughar. And Nughar refers to a small bird with a red beak, like something like a sparrow. A small bird sparrow. Right, so here on this hadith, right, actually the story goes that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this was the hadith, if you ever heard before, Imam Shafi'i, there was one time Imam Shafi'i, he went to the house of his student Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. And Imam Ahmad, he would sing praises of Imam Shafi'i, right, to his daughter. He would say all kinds of great things about Imam Shafi'i. I have actually heard the story go both ways. Some say that it was Imam Ahmad who went to Imam Shafi'i's house and he would praise Imam Ahmad, and another narration would be that it was Imam Shafi'i who went to Imam Ahmad's house and Imam Ahmad would sing praise Imam Shafi'i. Either way, they are brothers fillah. Imam Ahmad, Imam Shafi'i, they are brothers fillah. So, right, Imam Shafi'i, so he would praise his teacher so much. So we're going to take the nation whereby it was Imam Shafi'i who go to Imam Ahmad's house. Right, so when he came there, the daughter, right, was just curious, about this teacher of her father, right? So so she was observing Imam Shafi'i. It's a long story lah. But one of the stories was that, right, she said to her father, I observed that your teacher, when he came out to pray Fajr, I observed that your teacher does not pray Tahajjud at all through the night. It's one of her observations. It's a long story whereby she observed things about Imam Shafi'i that she complained about to her father. The first thing that she complained about was that he eats too much. Right? We're told to eat less. He eats too much. Right? Second thing is that he sleeps on his back, not on his right. Right? Third thing is that he does not pray Tahajjud. Doesn't pray the night prayer. And the fourth thing was that he prayed subuh without wudu. And the daughter noticed this because she put a container of water next to him, and so she observed that he didn't take wudu, so there was no movement in the water there. So when Imam Ahmad asked his teacher, my daughter had these complaints about you, and what do you have to say? And of course Imam Ahmad is asking because he knows there's a reason, and so he knows that to get lessons from his teacher. So the first thing he said, I ate too much because I ate a lot when I was at your house, because this is the food of the righteous. And when the righteous serve us food, we eat their food, because their food is barakah and there's mercy. And I know that the one who cooked this food was reciting Quran the entire time. And in fact, it was the daughter who actually cooked the food, and she was reading Quran the entire time. So I could taste. So when I ate, the more blessing and benefit I got from the food. Then he said, and because of that food, I spent the whole night thinking about one hadith. And from that one hadith, I pulled out, it was said, how many, like 50 or 60 or 70 mas'ala, right, situations and solutions, right, from that one hadith. The whole night was pulling out from the hadith. How many situations from his hadith? And it was said, this is the hadith. is Abu Nughair hadith. Right, Ya Aba Umair, ma fa'ala Nughair. That one hadith, he spent the entire night awake thinking about the hadith, and he pulled out, he said how many, I can't remember about how many mas'ala, how many solutions and lessons and situations from the one hadith. You know, and then he will ask, why do you sleep on your back? So he says, well, you know, I was about to sleep on my right when I noticed there was a mushaf on the other side. So I didn't want to face my back towards the mushaf, right? But I didn't want to face my back towards the qibla, right? So if I face the mushaf, my back will be towards the qibla. If I face the qibla, my back is towards the mushaf, and the mushaf's not mine, so I couldn't touch it. So you wouldn't want to move the mushaf. So I slept on my back. You see the kind of wara' they have, the kind of how particular. It's not even mine. I can't even touch it without anyone's permission. I can't even touch it, right? So I just slept on my back. And then he said, because I spent the whole night thinking about the hadith, I didn't sleep. Then I had to wake up, and also because the whole time my mind, and he said it was because of the barakah of the food that my mind was just working the entire time, pulling out mas'ala from the hadith. So I couldn't even stop it. I couldn't even pray, because I was just gaining knowledge more and more. Ilmu laduni from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of the blessing of that food that you gave me. So you know, when he explained to the daughter of Imam Ahmad, she was like, you are right, oh my father. This man is like none other, you know, subhanallah. But it was said that this hadith that he spent the entire night thinking about was his one hadith, Ya Aba Umair, ma fa'ala Nughair. And the whole time about the hadith about the bird and the boy. And you're like, what mas'ala? It's a simple hadith, right? But he, subhanallah, spent the whole night thinking about the hadith, you know, subhanallah. Right, so here you see, even Shaykh Abu Bakr Abu Ghuda, he has 11 mas'ala that he pulled out from his one hadith, like the fa'idah, the benefits from this hadith. And in fact, the scholars can write all about this hadith and all of the blessings from this hadith. Okay, this bird, right, this Nughair, this small bird, actually Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had a habit of asking the small boy about the bird. Right, because the boy goes around with his small bird. It's like a 4-year-old boy, very small boy, and a very small bird. He carries his small bird and he goes everywhere with his small bird. Right, so and the bird sits on his shoulder, on his finger, right, follows him around at his bed. So whenever someone sees his boy is an Anas's younger brother, right, small brother but half brother, right, not a full brother. It's from his mother's second husband, Abu Talha, right? Now, so he says whenever he sees the boy, he sees the bird, say, how's your bird? Right, so here we see a sunnah of Rasulullah to take interest and to make important what is important to the small kids, right? And you see a prophetic mercy, right, that is most human beings won't do. Right, so for them it matters. The bird matters to them. You know, for them, their small whatever that they like, that their favorite thing, it all matters to them. These things matter to them, right? Because they're small, so small things matter to them. Right? Because they're small, you know, their minds do not extend further than what they know, right? So, but to do this as an adult, and he is a prophet, very busy. He's a prophet, right? You know, no one is more busy than prophets, right? So he has big issues, you know, jihad going on, da'wah going on, teaching going on, the angel going on, Quran going on. Like, you have a lot. He has his wives to think about, you know, and so on. You know, but he takes this small bit of time just to say to the small boy, whenever he sees the small boy in his bed, how's your bird? You know, Ya Aba Umair, ma fa'ala Nughair, how's your bird? You know, how's your bird? So the boy macam, oh, my bird is happy today, or my bird is, you know, whatever today, my bird. Let him talk about his bird. You know, even though, you know, for you, you're an adult, you know, I don't care about some bird. Right? But to the boy, it's important. And when you ask them, you know, about these things, you know, it makes them feel important. Right? You know, someone's putting interest in my bird. Right? So the sunnah of Rasulullah, right, whatever is important to them, and whatever matters to them, you show interest in. Right? You ask them questions about it. Right? You know, what do you think about that? Oh, what happened after that? Right? Oh, really? You know, they tell stories about school or whatsoever. Pay attention. right? What's going on? And this is from the prophetic sunnah. Right? It's called sunnah mawaqif. It's sunnah mawaqif, prophetic stances, right?
Is the brother of
Sayyidina Anas was half brother, same mother, different mother. It is there are different opinions as to what happens in Anas's father, right? There are different opinions about it, but we know that when Rasul came to Medina, he was already without a father. Some say that he was orphaned, some say that his father left his mother, right? Allahu alam. And there are different opinions about Sayyidina Anas's father, right? But Sayyidina Anas's mother, she married of the Muslims, right? Abu Talha. She's Sulaim, and she's an amazing woman, like amazing woman. Her stories, the mother of Sayyidina Anas, mashallah, one of those very you say a sahabiyat that you should learn about, right? It's Sulaim, learn about her, right? So actually this is the story. It goes that if you ever heard a story about a young boy whereby that died, she was the one that she had a baby, not a baby but a small boy, and he died, right? And he died, and then when her husband came back, right, she didn't say anything. She served him and she beautified herself, and then she slept with him, right? The boy that died is Abu Umair. This is the boy. He died.
Thereafter there was another child.
Yes. His other children lah. So from that child, right, so the story goes that she did this, right, and then she got pregnant from the night. So when the husband, okay, she recorded, right? Okay, the story goes, right, that this boy actually falls sick, very sick. His Abu Umair falls very sick, right? And then what happens is that Abu Talha, so he's from Abu Talha, is his first son, Abu Talha. So he went out, right, to do some things, and while he was out, the boy dies, right? So she, inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un, she covers over the boy, right, and she goes and she prepares dinner. You see the kind of strength there is, like a child just died, right? And she just covers him up, right? And then she goes and prepares dinner, right? And then she beautifies herself, right? And then when her husband comes back, he asks her, "How's my son?" Because he was sick. "How's my son?" And she says, "He is as he is." It's the answer. He is as he is. He is as he is. Whatever that means, he is as he is. So the husband assumes that it means that he is sick. He's still sick. So then she gives him dinner, right? And then she beautifies herself for him, right? So he slept with her, right? After he slept with her, then she said to him, "What do you say about someone who borrows something from someone else, and then the owner comes and claims it back, and he doesn't want to give it back? What do you say about that?" And then Abu Talha says, he should give it back. It's not his. Right? So the owner claims it, he should give it back, right? And then she says to him, "Then be patient about our son," right? To indicate to him that he has died. And have patience. Right? Have patience about our son, right? Abu Talha got upset with her. He got angry with her. He's died, and you can even serve me and sleep with me and whatsoever. And he got angry, upset. He got up and he went to Rasulullah to complain. And Rasulullah told him what happened. Rasulullah said to him, "May Allah bless you in your night, and may Allah bless you with your wife." Right? So and he acknowledged what Sulaim did. So this is strength lah, this kind of woman, right? So from that night she got pregnant, right? And from that child that she gave birth to, that child got, if I'm not wrong, a number of children, around about 9 children or to 11, a number of children, all of them memorized Quran, right? From the blessing. And so the blessing of the dua of Rasulullah, from the blessing of this woman who was so, is it how she held herself, held herself, and she did what she did, right? And then she even informed her husband in a way for him to understand. But it's her child too, it's not like that it's the doctor to tell you that your child passed away. No, it's her own child, subhanAllah. So this is basically it's mentioned like that this child that passed away was Abu Umair, the boy that's here. Alright, so here you see in this story, right, the boy, right, Rasul sees that the boy is sad one day, and he sees that the boy is a bird that died, and he acknowledged it also. So he acknowledged the sadness of the boy, And so he didn't like, like, don't cry over a bird, it's just a bird. Right? But he acknowledged the boy's sadness, that the boy is sad that his bird died. Right? It's a legitimate feeling. Right? He liked his bird, he loved his bird, and his bird died, so he feels sad. Right? It's okay. Right? It's okay to feel sad. Right? So he went to Omer and said, oh Omer, what happened to the Nuqair? Right? To lighten up, to speak to him and to bring him up from his sadness. So it says here, the lessons that are derived from his hadith, a leader can specifically visit some of his followers. He can. Right? So he used to frequent the house of Sayyidina Anas bin Malik. He can intermingle with some of his followers and not others, and this was true also. He would go to some people's houses and not to other people's houses, right? And that was the habit of Rasulullah. He would go and visit them. A learned person may convey his knowledge to one who will benefit from it, right? So where is this coming from? Right? A learned person may convey his knowledge to one who will benefit from it, right? So here it is said that it is Sayyidina Anas. Sayyidina Anas knew of this situation, and he saw the need to narrate this. So you can even see, why did Sayyidina Anas see the need to narrate this incident? Because basically it's just his brother, small brother, but died, and Ram said to him, Ya Aba Umair ma fa'ala Nuqair. That was it. And basically that was what happened. So for us, if this happened in your house, right, you wouldn't see, a lot of you wouldn't see the significance of it to narrate it. To narrate this hadith. But Sayyidina Anas, he saw the significance to narrate it to show the character of Rasulullah. Right? So he is a knowledgeable person, right? And he conveys his knowledge on this to those who are benefit from it. And true enough, Imam Shafi'i thereafter, when this hadith came to Imam Shafi'i, right, he saw so much benefit in this hadith. The hadith of Ya Aba Umair ma fa'ala Nuqair. It's even called that. The hadith is even called this by the statement of Rasulullah. It's called this. Right? The hadith of Ya Aba Umair ma fa'ala Nuqair. It's called that. The permissibility of joking is established. He was not exactly joking, right? But he was calling the bird with a term of endearment, right? So he called, what happened to your dear bird? That's what it's called. What happened to your dear, cute, sweet bird? In the sense that it's a form of showing that your bird was a sweet bird, in a way. So it's not exactly joking in the way we understand joking, right? But it's the way joking whereby they understand joking, whereby they use nice terms, right? To just, your sweet bird, what happened to your sweet bird, right? So moreover, it is permissible to joke with a child who has not yet reached the age of understanding, because this boy was said to be non-mumayyiz. He's a 4-year-old boy. So you can joke with small kids, it's okay. You can joke with them in what they understand. So small kids, they understand things like you call them sweet bird, right? Or cute bird, right? Or what's it called, the bird? Little bird. What happened to your little bird? Right? So and with the voice and with the whatever small kids understand. Right? Small kids, they understand intonations. Right? So when you use your voice in that way, it will lighten up the. Alright, number 5. It is permissible to address someone who is not yet a father by the title of Abu, father. That means you can call a small boy Abu something. Right? He's not a father. Right? It's Abu Umar, yeah, Abu Umar. Right? So and they will name their kids and their children the kind of names, because in hope that these kids grow up and become fathers and mothers. Right? So they tend to name their kids by that. Right? It is permissible for a child to play with birds, provided no harm is caused to them. It is permissible for those who are entrusted with children to allow them to have such pets. See, from this hadith comes the permissibility of having pets. You can actually have pets. But without harming the pet. Right? You can actually have pets. Right? But you can't harm the pets lah. Right? Don't harm the pets. And when you have your pets, you have to be beneficial to your pets. Right? Beneficial, right? Responsible, beneficial to your pets, right? Okay. Right, so from this hadith, you find that it is permissible to have pets. Number 7, it is permissible to spend money on permissible items with which a child may amuse himself. So someone asks the question, can I spend money buying this kind of things for my children? Right, it's permissible, right, for them to find happiness, right, in their life. So things that are, but the items must be permissible. Right, so now we have the question of when it comes to all these gadgets, right? Right, and things that are there that are harmful on our children. It comes the question of with every time the money is spent, because everything is money spent anyway, right? The money is spent, right, on this, right? Will there be a sin? If someone buys harmful things for their children, or they buy harmful toys for their children, like video games that are harmful, right? Or dolls that are sexual, harmful, right, to your children. So the usage of money in that way, because if from the hukum, right, when he says it's permissible to buy permissible things to amuse your children, right? So on the flip side, you would say it's impermissible to buy impermissible things that will harm your children. Right? Even though they will amuse themselves, but they're actually in fact harming themselves. Right? So that is impermissible for someone to even buy that in the first place. It's impermissible to buy these things, right? Because it will harm their innocence, right? And it will harm the goodness in them. Right? So now all these video games all out, cross. Right? All these sexual dolls. And for me, I really hate sexual dolls. I mean, dolls basically they are women. They're not babies. Babies okay. Baby with stuffed dolls with beans inside. It's not beanie dolls. They are babies. Right? So baby can lah. Baby they carry the baby. They give the baby milk. Right? That kind of thing. Okay lah, baby. Right? But women dolls don't teach anything. Like women, why must our girls have women? Like fully endowed women with all the woman assets. It's all corruption. So I would even from this hadith say that it is haram to buy these kind of dolls. I would say it's haram. Like, Allahu Alam, I don't know if you have opinion, but I would say it's haram. And because what does it do? It teaches vanity, right? It teaches sexuality. If you have boys in the house, shows them the woman parts. Right, it teaches being worldly, also, right? Fashion and beauty, and now all the studies of it makes their self-esteem low, right? It brings down their self-esteem, makes them hate themselves, how they look, right? Because they compare themselves to all these beautiful things, right? So much harm, right, in a toy, right? So would that be halal for a parent to buy? Right? Is it permissible or is it haram to buy when it's going to bring all of these negative things to your child, even though they enjoy it, right? But it's negative implications, right, onto your child. Think about it, right? So also all of this, like I would say, like wrestling figures, the wrestling WWE, right? Wrestling figures, right? All this, like, because the entire culture of it is terrible, right? I mean, if people buy for their boys, right, all of these things. So Allahu Alam,
How about like action figures, action heroes, like superheroes, and then I mean it's not sexual in any way. Or but what happens is when they play with, they go into the cartoon world.
Yeah,
and they go around catching each other like Batman.
Yeah lah, it's delusion. It's delusion. That one might not be haram, might be macro. Right, but it's delusion also. You're bringing your kids.
They go into the world of
they go into this entire thing. So it brings.
It's not beneficial.
Yeah. The attire of the superheroes is obscene. Yeah, haram. And some of the superheroes all got girlfriend. So they all got girlfriends, right? They have like women and whatsoever. No, PJ Masks, all that. I honestly, and I'm not saying this just to annoy you or whatever, but I honestly think PJ Masks looks like shaitan. They do, right? The one that wears red and has the
outlet.
she has like the ears. You know what's PJ Masks It does look like shaitan. It's a very popular child.
They go into the world.
Okay, this PJ Masks, these 3 children that has superheroes, I think.
Three school kids that at night become superheroes.
Okay, yeah. So they dress up at night in full costumes, right? There is one of them. So one is green, one is blue, and one red. Okay, it's a hit amongst children, right? So the red one is a girl, is it?
Yes.
She looks like shaitan.
Okay, yeah.
She really does. She really does. She's red. She has ears in her costume, and she has a long tail. Like Shaitan. When I first saw, I was like, is it Shaitan? and she flies. Right. So I mean, but her daughter likes it. so there's one time she came in the baju, and I was like, isn't that Shaitan?
No, I have the baju.
She has the baju lah.
Okay, but that was bought for her. Okay, none of her PJMS merchandise came from me.
Throw away.
But,
Honestly, I throw away. If anybody were to give, if I have a daughter and I wanted to give them anything that is nonsense, I would throw away.
okay, but she plays pretend with them. And then, but
You
she
can
goes
play
into the
pretend
world.
with other things.
Okay.
Give her cats. Cat stories. The mother cat, father cat. Right, go on an adventure together. It's better having cat stories.
But you know the neighbor and our neighbors also watch, and they will go into like a full run after each other, save the world.
Yeah
and
lah, which
destroy
I
the-
think is
that's the thing.
terrible. It's terrible. I
I'm
honestly think
wondering
it's
whether to delve into the world.
Hamza Yusuf at the top on superheroes. Go and hear. Sheikh Hamza. I always follow Sheikh Hamza. He will say it. Right. MashaAllah. Right, but basically, this entire, you see it, what we're even talking about is what is on the surface of it. You don't know the insinuations that's placed in these things. You know, I mean, we don't know, right? We know like that all cartoons have insinuations and all cartoons have like brainwashing elements and corruption and what. We know it, we know it, right? But we just don't see it because it's done in that way. The way they draw things and whatsoever is all, they have obscenities in their drawings to corrupt the minds of children. So that's one thing also, right? And the entire story of this superhero and all that, it could very well be, right? Here she Hamza Yusuf. It could very well be that this entire drive to push forward the superheroes is because they will come in the future and they are the jinn and the sahir. They are the magicians and the jinn, right? And they will go around saving the world. So don't think the superheroes thing is for nothing, eh? The superheroes thing is a modern day phenomena, and they're pushing the idea of the superhero because some of the ulama have said in the future there will be superheroes, and they will fly, and they will save, and they will protect, and that is how they delude and they pull the crowd. Right? And then so kids are being fed with the idea of superhero. So when they see a superhero, they accept it.
So if I see them playing such things, I should try and divert their attention. That means pull them away.
You know what happens in my house? If anybody gives them a superhero thing, right? They'll be very happy they hold it, right? When they go to sleep, it disappears.
Yeah, I know. Okay, that's a toy, but the whole game play where they play with each other. And
Because they've already been exposed to it.
Yeah, so I divert their attention.
Yes. And in fact, tell them about the superhero being jinn. I would just say that. And this superhero, right? They all not Muslim, they're all jinn. All jinn. Yeah. I know people could be paranoid lah, but I don't care. But seriously, yeah lah, pajamas and whatsoever. Like, so just it's all shaitan, no? It's all jinn. It's all jinn. Right, like even for the what's it, the Frozen. She's a witch. She's a witch.
But Frozen looks scary to begin with.
But the girls are taking into it. And they're buying into it. They're witches. Witches. Right. But all these things, see, all these cartoons, it's not for no reason. Don't be paranoid. Okay, but we have to be real. These cartoons are not for no reason. Right? The people who develop all these cartoons, it's not just for fun like that. It's not. It's to groom an entire generation of people who will accept superpowers, which is basically magic and jinn. So it's going to be Dajjal will be all about superpowers. How do you think Dajjal is going to come and be celebrated? How else than to be a superhero, right? I mean, someone with powers, right? And then his followers will have powers. They all have powers. So those who follow them get powers. So now you see this entire movement towards this kind of things of magic and of having superpowers.
But how do we differentiate this this superpowers thing versus what our ulama said, which is
Awliya, karamat.
yeah,
Karamat from
karamat
Allah
awliya.
subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah, how do we
The first thing about karamat is it can only come at the hand of someone who is always obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no karamat for the one who is disobedient at all. So the first thing we teach our kids about the awliya, right, is that they call awliya because why? The wali mutawali bi ta'ah. That means they go from act of obedience to act of obedience, act of obedience. They don't stop the acts of obedience. That is their karamat. That is their first karamat. That they don't disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then whatever you do thereafter, that they can fly, they can walk on water and whatsoever, right? That is for what? That is by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they are obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in a sense, when we teach our kids about the karamat of the awliya, so in a sense, you can even replace all the superheroes with all the awliya. You know, there was a wali or the prophets or the whatsoever who could do things, right, that were, you know, mashallah, beyond human norm. Because Allah, it's called karamat because Allah honors them by their obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right, so a person cannot get superhero powers just because, you know, they are born that way or whatsoever. No, right? They are awliya. Right? But if they get it like that, that means they are using the jinn to help them out, right? And you don't want to be that. Must son. The thing is that our society, we are so brainwashed by these things that if you try to speak up against superheroes, you are seen as being extreme. Whereas you ask the question, why must we like superheroes? Right? Why must we feed our children Batman and Spider-Man and Superman and what? So why? Why must we? These are not people who are of good character or people of worship or people of, you know.
But the second episode, whatever the next movie of Frozen, what is it? The one in blue lah. She's actually.
That's how they do it. Yeah, I read about it also. Like the Frozen, the princess, she will show. She's not straight.
Yeah. So
That, yeah. So they
fans.
whatever.
Like macam wait, and then suddenly you
Because Disney is becoming what do you call it? What's the word?
liberal.
Not liberal. They're becoming inclusive. That's the word they use. That's the word they use, right? Inclusive.
I told my friends don't watch it.
Don't watch any of them. Right? Their Disney movies from the very beginning has been having all these kind of sexual connotations inside from the very beginning, right? And that's what they do. They're out there to destroy. Okay, anyway, so to spend money on permissible items, you should charm and amuse himself, right? Spend money on a permissible item. It is permissible to keep birds in cages or other similar enclosures as long as you don't harm the birds. One should deal with people according to the level of their intellect and understanding. This is very important, right? To deal with them according to their intellect and understanding, because you are being oppressive onto children if you try to deal with them in a way they cannot understand. Right? So for someone who's not umayyiz, right, to try and punish them and scold them when they can't actually understand things, right? Especially using physical punishment. Like physical, so and then they don't know what's going on. They lack of better judgment or whatsoever. Therefore, a tree, they can't understand things, right? So you can't. So he says here not to deal with them according to their intellect and judgment, right, and understanding, right? So this boy, his understanding is about the bird. So Rasulullah, he went down to the level of the boy, and he showed his care and concern for the boy, even though it's a bird, it's a small bird, but it's important to the boy. Right. It is permissible to address a person by his diminutive name if he is not offended by it. Right. So in this case, the child addressed by Abu Umair. Right. Umair is a smaller form of Omar. Right. Every name can be diminuized. Right. So you have Samia, Sumayya. You have Umar, Umair. It's a diminutive. Right. This kind of thing lah. You can always it's a way in Arabic, right, to diminuize, right, the form. Right. It is permissible to ask about something despite having knowledge of it, provided it does not entail mockery. In this case, Rasulullah asked what happened to Nughair despite knowing that he had died. So he heard from the people that he had died, but he went to the boy and he said, what happened to Nughair? Right. So in the way he was doing it, it was just to open up for the boy, Right? He wants to open up about his big bird dying and express his feelings. Right? So he gave the boy, an avenue to express his feelings. Mashallah. Okay. Okay. Should we take the next one? Take lah. Okay. روى أبو داود والترمذي عن أنس رضي الله عنه قال إن رجلا استحمل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال له رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إني حاملك على ولد الناقة فقال الرجل يا رسول الله ما أصنع بولد الناقة فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وهل تلد الإبل إلا نوق. Right, this is very funny joke. It is actually funny, very funny. Right, so Abu Dawud and Tirmidhi narrate on and it's, you know what is my teacher mentioned to us before, that it is a sign of the believer to find what some finds funny, just to find it funny, because you find it funny. I should laugh at his jokes, laugh at his jokes. Right. So and he has a lot of jokes. So whenever you see his jokes, just laugh at his jokes. So he says, Abu Dawud and Tirmidhi narrate the daughter of Anas who said that a person asked Rasulullah to give him a camel, right? And the camel is for him to load his goods on it. And Rasulullah said to him, I will give you the child of a camel. Right? I'll give a child of a camel. And the man said, Ya Rasulullah, what can I do with a child of a camel? Because the man assumed a small camel. And some said, aren't all camels child of camels? Right, don't camels only give birth to camels? Right. So I didn't say I'm giving you a small camel, it could be a big camel, but a child of a camel, right? There's a joke there. Right. So subhanAllah, and sometimes he makes his jokes randomly. Not randomly, but in a sense, when you least expect the joke to come, the joke comes. Right. So the man is being serious and he's like, he's being like, I want a camel for my own. And it's another narration says it was for jihad. A camel for jihad. Maybe old and big enough to carry loads, because all camels are child of camels. Right? The following is from the Hadith. One, Rasulullah taught his student and others who were present that when hearing something, one should ponder over it and not hasten to answer. And the man should have thought about it. Right? And it is a very important trait to a student which a student should adopt in order to succeed. Rasulullah, the teacher, was joking, yet speaking only the truth, because all camels are offspring of other camels. Right? It's true. It teaches us to focus our minds on identifying subtle meanings. Right, this is all of teaching through humor. Right, the famous hadith also about the old woman who came to Rasulullah alaihi wasallam, who said, Ya Rasulullah, will I be in paradise? And then he said, there are no old people in paradise. Right, and even the question was very serious. It's a serious question. But there are no old people in paradise. And she turned away, her eyes, full of tears. She was like, she's heartbroken. Then he called her back. What I meant was, when you go to paradise, you'll be young. That's what I meant. Right, but then it brought joy to her heart thereafter. Right, because he quickly. Right, it's a joke lah, And there are many. As I mentioned, I have the book about 100 smilings or laughings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, so it's also sunnah that after we do the dua of going up the vehicle, to smile. The sunnah of smiling, because Rasulullah did that. Right, so when he said the dua of the vehicle, subhanahu wa ta'ala hadha wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina rajiun, right, wa inna ila rabbina lamunqalibun, right, that we smile to ourselves, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, and then we smile to ourselves, right. That was narrated by Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, whose companions saw him smiling. So when they asked him, why do you smile? Then he said, because Rasulullah smiled. And I asked him, why do you smile? Right, and then he said, because Allah has forgiven the one who says this. So then he smiled. That's his smiling is about that. It's like it's called like you say your heart is shy, your heart just melts. And the kind of things that makes him laugh and makes him smile. Right. So mashallah, the hadith, the book that I have, mashallah, my husband bought it. It's a good buy. Inshallah, I'll go through it someday. Sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. الفاتحة. أن الله يرزقنا على المنافع وعمل خالص ويستعين بالهدى ويصلي بقبر النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وإلى أرواح معالمنا مشيخنا وذوي الحقوق علينا وإلى حضرة النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. الفاتحة.